The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Happy Sunday morning to you, football fans. Thanks for being with us on the program. It is First and 12, brought to you by KSL Sports, right here on the KSL Sports Zone and the KSL News Radio every Sunday, 10 to noon, brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping. Happy Sunday morning to you, Mitch Harper. I'm Alex Kirry. Mitch, Laramie, as beautiful as it usually is, or how do you...
About the same. It's Laramie, even after 15 years away. It's the same vibe. It's a lot of nothing and a lot of planes, but it was a good trip nonetheless to be out here at Laramie.
My favorite part was in the post game, and we'll get to some sound from Kalani Sitake coming up in just a little bit. But it is definitely one of those games, and I couldn't tell if Kalani was being ironic or just trying to be nice. He did not want to go full Lavelle Edwards and say, I'd rather lose in Provo than win and live in Laramie, whatever it was. But Kalani was like, oh, it's beautiful. The fans, they love their football team. And then he goes, and it's just the scenery's just beautiful out here. And I was like, hold on. He's lying out here. He's trying to get people there. There's no way that the scenery's beautiful out there, but it's fine. BYU gets the win. Utah gets the win. Your Big 12 is definitely underway with the official first game of the conference this weekend. Let's kick things off here with the big game breakdown.
The Utah Utes post-game analysis.
Very first, right off the bat here, Mitch, I don't know if this is something that you – I follow this game quite closely just because I did the post game for the Utah breakdown, and I was pretty impressed with Isaac Wilson. They get the win 38-21 up there. It was dicey because it was a 14-3 start for Utah State. You knew that they were going to come out and be excited. I didn't think that it was going to be that flat. I'm certain that Kyle Whittingham was not super excited with the start because that's exactly what he said. But I was pretty shocked to see that Utah State showed up in that way, and the Utah's defense struggled a little bit with the run game.
Yeah, first time start for Isaac Wilson, and it's the first Utah quarterback as a freshman to throw for 3 touchdowns in a game. So impressive performance for Isaac Wilson, considering it's only his third college game, first career start. I thought he looked really good. It seemed like defensively Utah was, at least early, kind of overthinking it to try to compensate for the knowledge that Bryson Barnes had of the defense, and I think they were just kind of overthinking it a touch, and they kind of got back to their base looks, and then they started to put the lockdown on Utah State. But solid performance nonetheless. But I will say that it got a little interesting when it was 14-3, and I didn't think that was even in the realm of possibility that Utah State could have had that sort of lead. But maybe Utah came out a little bit flat and wasn't maybe dialed in for the opponent, because first trip to Logan since 2012. In many respects, it's kind of like BYU to Laramie. You wondered how motivated these guys were going to be for these sort of opponents, but Utah dialed in and they pulled away, and that's what we expected them to do.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I think that the slow start ended up being something that they overcame, and so if we're going to judge this one, Utah gets 460 yards of offense. It's a very Andy Ludwig offensive performance by the balanced. I'm sure they looked at this thing and they loved it. One, they own the possession game, 37.5 minutes to Utah State's 22.5 minutes. Isaac Wilson, he ended up 22 of 33 for 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception. They ran for 221. So that's that balance that I'm sure Andy Ludwig and Kyle Whittingham really love. But there's a lot of stuff to work on, obviously. Now, one of the things that I will say, too, the slow start gives you a 14-3 look. The game ends up 38-21, and you think to yourself, well, it should be 45-0. That's what USC was able to do last week, was at 40-something to 0, and you should shut them out. You're Utah's defense. You're better than the USC defense, except for they're playing in Logan, weird place. You are starting your backup quarterback, who is a true freaking freshman, who, by the way, if you're going to grade Isaac Wilson, I think you need to actually just step back and go, all right, is this what you would expect now out of the guy? Is this what you wanted out of him? And the answer should be yes, because it was a pretty darn efficient day. He got settled in the second half. And, yes, with the 14-3 start that they had, then after that it was 35-7 the rest of the way, which means he settled in. Yeah. He started to get going. And 35-7 is a freaking blowout, like by all accounts. And that was it was 14-3. They go into the half at 17-14. So he had already kind of settled there. They had a good third quarter. There were some mistakes in there. Perfect. Work on him. He's a true freaking freshman. So I think the people that were quick to judge and say you should have blown out Utah State. Look at what Utah State's doing right now. Their back is against the dang wall. Nate Dreiling, their head coach, is doing a heck of a job to just try to stay above water right now. And Utah State has a lot going on outside of the actual football game itself. This week, think about how crazy the news was. These guys are wondering what conference they're going to be in the next couple of years. So there's a lot on their plate. I think Utah going and getting the win in that environment with the true freshman. Anyway, I know I just went off a lot, but I wanted people to settle down because Isaac Wilson had a good game, and Utah ended up blowing this thing out, even though it might not look like it on paper. If you just were to read the stat sheet, you would kind of go, did they have a little bit of a hard time? I will say the defense played worse than I think the offense did. And Mitch, and I mean, honestly, I think that if you were to look at it, you would go, no, look, you're the veteran defense. You're supposed to be the one shutting them out and then giving your freshmen all the chances in the world to be able to do it. But they had a hard time stopping Rasul Faison on the ground. He was really good. 19 carries for 115 yards. That should be a little concerning for Utah fans.
The defense, though, they did have some big plays from their secondary. Pair of young guys. I thought the game turned when Smith Snowden got that interception, and Calhoun, the Michigan transfer. That's a sophomore and a freshman. Young guys that are going to be kind of at the heart of Utah's secondary as they settle into life in the Big 12 Conference. So they come up with big plays, and that's when the tide started to really turn for Utah as they kind of put the lockdown on this game. I thought it was also noteworthy when you bring up the offense. Mekhi Bernard coming into the season, we knew he was going to be RB1. Yes. But it feels like it's a clear-cut RB1 now where he's going to be that guy. I don't know if he's a, bell cow back, the cliche of 20, 22 carries, something like that. But, 13 to 15, 20 carries up to that level, maybe on the high end. He ends up with 17 carries, 123, and a touchdown. He had that 64-yarder. I thought Bernard had a really impressive performance. As you get ready now for Oklahoma State next week, you got to have some clarity at that running back position. I think you got that with Mekhi Bernard really establishing himself as the clear-cut number one guy.
Yeah, and there was a weird moment, too, there, Mitch, where, so that 64-yard run came at a very, very key time because there was the Isaac Wilson interception that was thrown, gets Utah State into Utah territory pretty quickly. At that point, it was only a 28-21 game. And so then you're going, oh, boy, what is this going to look like? If they go down and score a touchdown, then we're tied at 28. And then instead they force them to kick a field goal, which they miss. They missed the field goal, and it was either the first or second play of that drive ends up being that 64-yarder. That turned around the entire game because after that, Utah State didn't get close to scoring, and you could have had that could have gotten a little bit dicey. That would have been a little bit of a weird moment there, and I'm sure that the Utah State even making that field goal would have been huge too. Would it make it 24-28 and it'd be kicking off instead of handing the ball back over immediately to the Utes there after you just stall out on offense. So overall, it's the battle of the brothers that everybody on both sides of this rivalry, Utah and Utah State players are like, yeah, we've been told it was a big time rivalry. Obviously, if the number 12 team in the country is coming into your stadium, that's a big time game. Anyway, the Utah guys showed up and for as much as everybody told them it was going to be a big game, took a little bit for them to get going. So there's the breakdown of your Utah Utah State game. Utah gets the win. They go to 3-0. They're going to likely be in that top 10 after the rankings come out today, a little bit later today. So I think you're looking at a really, really highly ranked Utah team facing off against a really highly ranked Oklahoma State team, the two highest ranked Big 12 teams facing off the very first week of conference play for both of these teams. It's an awesome way to get it started.
And I'll add this too, Alex. We had some debate on the power rankings this week, so stay tuned for that. The power rankings were a heated debate. Who's going to be at the top?
It was not a heated debate. You were just wrong. That was the only thing. There's no heated debate. You were just really.
We shall see.
We
shall see what it ends up being. But we got to take a break. 1st and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you. We're going to hear from BYU head coach Kalani Sitake next as the Cougars took down the Pokes in Laramie. It's 1st and 12 on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.